Hello, good evening. Welcome to Hucknall in Nottingham for this week's British Hockey Chat with me, John O'Bullard. Delighted to have your company as usual on this Tuesday evening. As ever, if I could ask a favour, if you could tweet the link out or share it on social media so we can get as many people into the chat as possible. Always makes for a better chat the more people we have in here. And I'd also like to say a big thank you to being inundated with questions this week. A lot came in actually before today, so probably half the questions that I've had came in actually before today. Quite a few Panthers ones, as you can probably expect after the weekend, but a few others as well. Some on officiating, quite a few on Team GB as well. And any questions that you have, don't forget that you can always pop them in the chat on here, or you can pop them to my Twitter at John O'Bullard, and I will be monitoring that as we go on. But a lot to get through, so we will crack straight on. Good evening to you, Craig. And uh, we'll start with a question from David Stevenson, who says, can you explain if there's any rules around picking imports for GB? I noticed there are some dual nationals, some have British parents. Is there a limit on the number of these being picked, or could we see some surprise call-ups happening in May? Noticed the other day, Sam Roop, elite prospects, is Canadian UK. Could he potentially be in line for a call-up? Good evening, Colin. And right, I know this often causes a lot of confusion, especially when we're coming up to the World Championship time about who can and who will be eligible for Great Britain. Essentially, if you're a homegrown player, then you are eligible. So if you have been trained as a junior for 2 years in this country, you are eligible to play for Great Britain. If you have a British passport or a dual passport, so the likes of Sam Rope or Kevin Massey, who's just signed for the Panthers, you cannot go straight into the Great Britain national team unless you played here for 2 years. So they will not be eligible unless they have played here for 2 years. And that's only if you have a British passport as well. So essentially, you have to have trained here for 2 years as a junior, and you have to have a British passport. If you have a British passport but haven't trained here, you can't go straight into the Great Britain team. You have to do a 2-year qualifying period, which is what Evan Mosey did, Dallas Earhart and the Brendan Connolly and all the other dual nationals who are currently in the Great Britain squad. So that is essentially it. So there will be no surprises on that regard with regards to imports. It has to be someone who's played here for 2 years and has a British passport. If they don't have a British passport but do want to play for GB, I think they have to go through a 5-year qualifying period and then apply for British citizenship. So essentially they will have a British passport, and that is the only way that they can get into the British squad. So I hope that answers your question, David. Next question comes from the boys at 4,000 and Counting, the podcast. Well worth a listen. Are available on all good podcast platforms. They have some fantastic guests. So do give them a listen. They do an excellent podcast. And so, if you can tune into them, you will enjoy it, I'm sure. And their question is also Great Britain related. He says, which uncapped players make the plane for Finland? Josh Waller has to be in the team this year. And I would agree with that. And I made a list. I love questions like this where I have to think and write stuff down. So I've sort of picked a few. Josh Waller definitely having a great season for the Cardiff Devils. So I would think he will probably make the plane. Netminder, I've put Ben Churchfield. He's playing in the SPHL in the USA after starting the season with the Steelers. Wasn't getting ice time, so moved to America where he could get ice time. And he actually got a call up to the ECHL. He was loaned to an ECHL team. So I think that has probably seen his stock rise and may give him an opportunity to come in as the third netminder behind Ben Bounds and Jackson Whistle. I think another netminder who could be in consideration, especially after his performances at the weekend, is Jordan Hadley at um, Coventry Blaze. So I think he's certainly got a chance as well. Greetings, Mingo Hockey. Nice to have you here from Canada. I hope we do your national game justice. Of the others in defence, I think Joe Hazeldine has got a really good chance of going. 20-year-old, I mean, this really good season for Manchester Storm. Was called out actually by Coach Ryan Finnerty last week when I was commentating on the game there. After in the post game interview, he picked him out as a player who's doing really well and paid him a massive compliment by saying that he had offensive instincts as a defenseman better than some imports. So I think Joe Hazeldine stands a really good chance of going to Finland. Another defenseman who is playing really well at the minute for the Glasgow Clan, Liam Stenton, 19-year-old. He was captain of the Great December. I think he's another one who stands a really good chance of being picked, and was also praised by head coach of the Clan, Malcolm Cameron, for the performances he's been putting in for Glasgow. So I think Liam Stenton is another possibility. Josh Waller, we've already talked about. A couple of others. Cade Nielsen, son of former Panthers coach Corey, he's been playing for the Aberdeen Wings in the North American Hockey League, which is a Tier 2 junior league in the USA. He's the third highest point scorer in that league this season, and he will be playing in the NCAA next season in Alaska. So I certainly think he will be in consideration. Always scored a great deal of points whenever he's played at under 20 and under 18 level for Great Britain. So I would think Pete Russell has probably got him under consideration as well. And a final one, and I think this is a guy who might just be on the cusp, but has been another one who's been putting up some great performances. And Jordan Kelso, who's playing for the Panthers, has developed into a fantastic shutting down forward, and has also managed to come up with a few points and a few goals this season as well. Probably on the cusp. I think it's probably 50-50 whether he makes the plane or not. But I think the way he's come on, the way he's developed, and he's come on leaps and bounds, I think he will be another who's under consideration for possibly going to the World Championships as well, due to the performances that he's put in this season. So they're the few for me. I mean, what does everyone else think who's watching? I mean, who do you think could make the team, bearing in mind that it looks unlikely that Liam Kirk will be going because of his injury. So there's a gap. Steve Lee has been out injured pretty much all season for the Panthers, so that leaves a gap on defense. So who do you think may be new caps in the World Championship squad coming up this season? Andrew Williams, staying on GB, asks, what do you think about the choice of opponent for GB for the warm-up games? So for those that don't know, 2 warm-up games for Great Britain before the World Championships have been announced against Denmark, who are fellow Pool A opponents. And there'll be games at Coventry and in Nottingham. So if you can get along to those, do get along. I think it's a great choice of opponent. I think getting a team in who is in the same pool was imperative, really. I think we need that sort of challenge prior to the tournament, especially considering we've had no other games this season. So yeah, I really like the fact that we've got Denmark coming over. Good test as well, and especially after the performances we put in against them in the World Championships, that in the last 2 we've been in, we got all round thrashed by them the first time in 2019. I think it was 8-0, and then took them to overtime in the 2021 World Championships. So there's your improvement. So it'd be interesting to see how we do against them at home. So that will be an interesting one. And a couple of games I'll hopefully be able to get along to. But do get along to those if you can. Um, let's crack on, and we're going on to women's hockey now. Martin Andrews asks, having watched some of the women's Olympic Games and being impressed with the quality of the teams, what do you think the biggest limitation is in British hockey that is stopping us compete at that level for both our men's and women's teams? Is it the limited rinks we have, cost of getting into the sport, equipment costs, lack of mainstream coverage, or something else? I don't think it's a limited rinks because there are teams who have less rinks and tend to do better than us. So no, I don't think it's that. The costs, I think, are interesting, but there's still quite big junior programs in Nottingham, in Sheffield, in Coventry, all over in Scotland. So yes, the costs can be prohibitive, but there's still plenty of juniors playing at the minute. Um, Lack of mainstream coverage, that's probably a fair point. But I think the biggest reason is the fact we just don't play enough games. I think there's 3 international breaks each season, and Great Britain very rarely, if ever, play in those international breaks. I think the last time they had a couple of games against Norway about 3 or 4 seasons ago. But I've never really taken part in them. And when you're sort of competing at the top of the game, certainly the men's, we really should be playing more games and testing ourselves a lot more. I think. Um, so I think that doesn't help at all. Um, and also, I think certainly from the women's point of view, is again that lack of exposure for the women's game, albeit they did have the Olympic qualifiers in Nottingham, which was a fantastic showcase for them. But I also think world rankings play a part as well. Well, the men's are 16th, and I think there's only 12 teams that can get into the Olympics. The women's at the minute are 23rd, I think, in the IIHF rankings. Um, so there's a lot of work there for them to do to get into that top echelons of women's hockey. Um, is it possible? Yes, but it needs a lot of, I think, and it needs a lot of time as well as investment, and they also need games. I think that's the most important thing, and testing themselves against other countries of the same level or a bit higher to see what needs to be done. Marco Doherty, he has a similar question about women's hockey. He's been watching the women's Olympic hockey. It's amazing how quick and skillful these guys are. Do you think our women's team can get to the level the top teams are at? And how can our governing body get the finance in place to help achieve this? Do you think the women have more chance of making the Olympics than the men? At the minute, no, because I think the men being in the top pool of the IIHF World Championships gives them that greater exposure. As I said, I think what the women's game needs is more exposure. Anthony says women's game here suffers from coverage, let alone mainstream coverage at times. Credit to IHUK and the IHA who have made more of an effort to promote it better than in the past. Yep. But it does need more exposure, and the Olympic qualifiers will have helped, but it needs more of that. They need more games in bigger, better venues in front of more people, and that will then generate the momentum towards sponsorship. Again, investment is what it needs. Coaching is what it needs. And they're having a lot of camps, but again, they need games. And I think that's the key. Both programs need more games outside of World Championships and Olympic qualifiers. And I think that's where IHUK need to probably be looking at the investment to play games at their level or at a high level to see where they are. And I think that's the only way that the program is going to improve. And I think that's really it at the minute. And we can dream of getting to that level, but it's going to take a lot of time. It's going to take a lot of investment, and it's going to take a lot of games. But it can be done, and the ambition has to be there as well. Moving on, and Richard Bradley asks, is it time for elite league clubs to find the money to pay for some level of professional officials? Officials have been getting a bit of a bashing over the past few days, and I noticed after the weekend, especially after the game I was at in Nottingham on Saturday, Panthers against Glasgow, that was live on Premier Sports. Um, the overtime winner, very controversial, as there was what I thought, and having seen the highlights, was a clear trip on Christophe Boyvan. Glasgow went up the ice and popped it in the net for the overtime win straight away. However, you know, Panthers should have taken more of their chances earlier in the game to have not taken overtime, won it in regulation time. However, on that point of view, I do think that the referees made a mistake there and should have called tripping. But by the by, it wasn't called. You just have to suck it up. Um, I don't think it matters if money is found to pay for professional officials, because I think people will still complain about officiating. You only have to look at the Premier League in football; they are all professional referees and linesmen, and everybody still complains about them and complain about VAR even more. So I would like to see some investment in training for officials, because at the end of the day, if they're not getting any training, how can we expect them to get better? And to be fair, I will always back officials. Anyone who regularly watches these knows that I will back officials to the hilt, because at the end of the day, they know the rule book like the back of their hand far better than your average person in the crowd does. And I'm sorry, that is the truth. And when you're going to watch a match, especially as a fan, you go with an amount of bias as well, because you are watching your team. And if something happens against your team, you are naturally going to be biased against anything that happens to them. So what I would say is, yes, I would like to see officials and referees get more training, but at the same time, I would also like to see more fans educate themselves by having a look at the rule book. I learn things all the time from looking at the rule book and things that I wasn't sure of, and I find it a great education. It's downloadable from the IIHF website. Um, it is the rule book that the Elite League uses, bar a few exceptions, which are on the Elite League website as well. So I would say to anybody, download the rule book and just make yourself familiar with it, and make yourself familiar with some of the rules on there. Um, it really helps my understanding of the game, and it really helps to see where the officials are coming from. Sometimes it's I cannot recommend that enough. Um, but yes, there should be some investment in officials, and we certainly do need more of them as well. Excuse me a second, got a bit of a tickle. Next question regarding the Nottingham Lions, and it comes from Charlotte Deakin, who has just joined the Lions media team, which is now gone from me and Chris Gadsby to I think there's 11 on the team now. Which if anybody who's been following the Lions will have seen how they put far greater exposure on social media, uh, live tweets during games, photos during games, GIFs. There's a lot more things in the pipeline to get everybody involved and to try and drive more people to come and watch the Lions. So they're doing an absolutely fantastic job. And Charlotte is one of the people who has gone in, and she asks, what would more sponsorship do for teams like Nottingham Lions, and how would they get more? So, for those who aren't aware, the Lions play in NIHL 1 in the North Division. They are a pay-to-play team, so none of the players get paid. They actually pay to train, they pay to play, they pay for coaches to take them to away games, etc., etc. So it's not cheap for them, and it's all part of the development of the Nottingham Ice Hockey Club, the junior ice hockey club, to bring players through to develop them ready for the next level. And so many players have come through that Lions team and have gone on to bigger and better things. More recently, Jack Hopkins, Archie Hayes was 9, but in the past, Ollie Betteridge, Robert Lakovic, others as well have come through and gone on to bigger and better things in British hockey. So what would sponsorship do? Sponsorship would be massive for the Lions. Any sort of cash or income injection that they get um, is used to help develop players. Nothing goes to paying players. It all goes into developing players and developing the future of hockey here in Nottingham. How would they get more? Well, to be honest, Charlotte, what you're doing and what all the other people on the social media team at the Lions are doing as well is increasing that exposure, so more people see it, more people come along, and that is what um, will attract the Lions to advertisers and will bring in more income, not only from um, gate receipts but also from sponsorship as well. So thank you for all that you and the social media team are doing. And hopefully it will all continue and great momentum and new things coming on board as well to help drive some income for the Lions. So keep an eye on their social media. Do give them a follow on Twitter @_ the Lions Pride. And you will be able to keep an eye on everything that the Nottingham Lions are doing in the near future. Let's have a look at the comments. Andrew, listening to Tom Darnell on 4000, his comments are very interesting. Not had a chance to listen to that yet. I will probably listen to that on the trip up to Manchester on Friday evening. When you think they work 5 days and give weekends up, fair play to them. Yeah, the referees. Do we need to get more homegrown talent into officiating? And if so, how do we encourage that? I'd like to see more former players take it on. But how you do that, that's the $1 million question, isn't it? Anthony, you see 11 on the Lions social media team is great. Tons of potential at the club, and that sort of thing is something for the CV and the foot in the door for people in the media. Yeah, absolutely. And it's I've used it, Chris has used it. So me and Chris now work professionally within not just ice hockey media for myself. I work a lot in sports broadcasting and volunteering for the Lions and doing things for the Lions has massively helped my career. And hopefully it will help the career of those who have taken on that mantle as well over the past few weeks. In the current market, it's hard to find people to part with money. Yeah, that's true. However, one thing about the Lions is it is very reasonably priced for that level of hockey. £5 for an adult, and you can get up to 2 under 16s in free for that as well. Panther season ticket holders are £3, and I think children under 16s are £1. So I think it is the best value ticket in that league. I don't think anyone is cheaper or a similar price to that. So it is a very, very good value to go. The only problem is it's in the Olympic rink at the NIC, so it only has a capacity of 300. Okay, from now on, it is going to be very Panthers heavy. I will warn you for everyone watching. Obviously, a lot of questions regarding the Panthers. So we'll start off with Dave Whistle. So Dave Whistle, the former Leeds Knights coach, was announced as being part of the Panthers coaching staff on Saturday evening. I believe he took up that role yesterday. So he will be part of the coaching team for the rest of the season at least. So quite a few questions around that. Andy Tring asks, with the addition of Dave Whistle to the coaching team, other than his vast experience, what impact do you feel he'll have on the team? Craig Bond, he says, with Dave Whistle coming in, do you think he will be able to help Gui Doucet to find the players to help this team out and help cut players before the fans stop coming, which will then also not help with money for players next season? It's a vicious circle we are in and things need to change. And Harvey Hay says, with Dave Whistle allegedly coming to a mutual agreement to leave Leeds due to them wanting to bring in the director of hockey and him wanting to retain the responsibilities of recruiting players. But he has now taken a role at the Panthers that already has that set up with Gui Doucet. Could this mean that Gui's role is going to be wound up by the end of the season with Dave going it alone next season? A lot of speculation there, an awful lot of speculation, which we don't know. All we know is that Dave Whistle has joined the coaching staff, not as head coach, I am led to believe. He's just come to help out the coaching staff. As Andy says, he brings vast experience, and I think that's what the coaching team needs. Mark Matheson and Steve Lee don't have a great deal of coaching experience between them. Dave Whistle's got tons of it. So I think from that respect, it's a great appointment. I'm really happy with the appointment. The problem we've got is the IIHF transfer deadline is next week, next Tuesday at midnight Central European time, so 11 p.m. UK time next Tuesday. Doesn't leave a lot of time to getting any players in. So essentially, you're working with what you've got. And let's be honest, Panthers fans watching, we haven't got a lot at the minute. As I've said all season, a lot of heart, a lot of desire, a lot of work rate, not a great deal of quality. And it was brought home to me quite well by my good mate Paul Barham's son, Sam, who said on the weekend, this is what happens when you sign a team full of third-line grinders and hard workers, but no scorers. And he's absolutely right. And that's the thing. Lots of effort, lots of grinding, but not really the scoring quality that we need, as was shown over the weekend. But more on that later. Regarding Harvey's question, I don't know if Dave Whistle's going to be here. I'll be honest, I'll be very surprised if Gui Doucet is here next season with everything that's happened over the past couple of months or so. I will be shocked if he's here next season, quite frankly. But I think he'll be here for the rest of the season. And with Craig's question about looking at players to cut and looking at players to bring in, not a lot of time to do it. I wouldn't be surprised to see maybe one new addition before the transfer deadline, but I think that'll be it. At the end of the day, I do wonder if the investment is going to be there, if they're just going to cut their losses and realise that this season is probably a lost cause, which I don't like saying, because obviously we're still in the semi-final of the Challenge Cup, albeit away tie at Belfast, which is going to be very, very difficult. And the league's gone. I was gone ages ago, so forget about that. And there's still the playoffs, but we've still got to get through. There's a lot of teams who are a lot better than the Panthers this season. So I think it's going to be very difficult for them to win anything, to be frank. And I hate saying that as a Panthers fan, but I'm just being realistic. Dave Whistle will come in. He'll bring experience. He'll hopefully look, and as Andrew says, you need a fresh set of eyes. He'll look and see where most of the problems are, hopefully, and hopefully coach it so that gaps are plugged, fires are fought. But I think that's all. You can only work with the quality you've got, and he's not going to turn. He's not going to turn us into the Tampa Bay Lightning overnight. Not a chance. So, he's got a tough job, but I'm very glad he's there. Very glad he's there. Next question comes from Greg Crooks, and he says, how long till Black admits the director of hockey role is a dismal failure and pumps those wages into an absolute top-class coach? I'll split that question into two. As I've said, I'd be very surprised if Gui Doucet is here next year. I'll also be very surprised if there's another director of hockey here next year as well. As regards pumping those wages into an absolute top-class coach, can't see that either. At the end of the day, Neil Black is a businessman. if he saves money on a director of hockey, realistically, is he going to put all them funds into the team or into the coaching? I'm not so sure. I am not so sure. Um, I mean, I think the director of hockey role needed a chance, and I'll stand by what I said at the time. It needed 3 seasons. This is the third season. I was very pleased it happened, and I'm still very pleased it happened. I will stand by that. I think it was trying something different and trying something new and seeing if it worked. So you've got to give credit to the club for that. Unfortunately, this season it hasn't worked, and I don't know. I don't like I said. I doubt very, very much there'll be another director of hockey next season. But well, and I doubt very much we'll get a top class coach as well, because we did have a top class coach in Rich Chernomaz who replaced Corey Nielsen, but he wasn't allowed to bring his backroom staff with him. Things didn't work out, and he was gone. He went back to DEL2 and won DEL2. I think that tells you everything. Leah Scott says, "Can you see Mr. Black running Panthers into the ground now he has got his hand fully on the clan?" No, I don't think he'll run Panthers into the ground for the simple fact he's a businessman. He likes making money. He's still probably making money from the Panthers, although not as much due to the massive decrease in attendances over this season. But what I can see happening is I think, and I've said it before, he needs to make a choice. I think he needs to make a choice of whether he's keeping the Panthers or he's going fully with the clan. I think with the clan having that arena agreement now, I think they look the better proposition at the minute. Certainly for making profit, which he can't do as much at Nottingham because he doesn't own the building. So we have to see what happens there. But I don't think he would ever run us into the ground because I think there's the potential to still make a lot of profit from that. So no, he won't run us into the ground. But I can see him maybe selling Panthers and going fully with the clan. Martin Catalas, seen a lot of posts from Panthers Massive. This is a Twitter account for Neil Black to sell the club. But according to Gui Doucet, we have the same budget as other teams. Is it a recruitment issue or a Black issue? Do you think it would be the right decision in the long-term future of the Panthers? And realistically, who would buy a British hockey team? Well, there were 3 blokes in Calgary who bought a British hockey team not so long ago. And look at what the Cardiff Devils have done since. However, appreciate that was pre-COVID and things are very, very different now. I think it is a Neil Black issue because I think although Guy Doucet said we have the same budget as other teams, I still can't see it. And if we have, he has recruited shockingly, and he's had his pants down by quite a lot of agents and a lot of players. Quite frankly, because there is no way that I still don't think that team is anywhere near the maximum wage budget. Nowhere near. And I know he said it on an interview, but if you watch him when he said it at the interview, his body language says something very, very different. I think what has happened is with the sad death of Gary Moran and him not being around, it has left Neil Black far more exposed. I think Gary, and I've said it before, took a lot of heat and a lot of flack away from Neil Black. That shield isn't there for Neil Black anymore. So I think now he is starting to get the heat that perhaps he maybe should have done previously. So for me, and I've said this before and I'll say it again, I think Neil Black should sell the Nottingham Panthers. I don't think he will, but I think he should. I think it needs fresh impetus. It needs fresh eyes. It needs fresh ideas. Everything seems to have gone incredibly stale. It's not entertaining on the ice. there's not a lot going off the ice, and I just think it needs a massive, massive change, and I think it needs a new owner, and I've said that for a long time. And I would say to Neil Black, if he's watching that, please do consider selling the club to someone else. I thank you for buying the club and saving them from certain bankruptcy back in the 90s. But I think, sir, you've taken this club as far as you can now. And I think it's time for somebody else to maybe take it over and try and take it forward. Because at the moment, I think we're going backwards. I think a lot of other people would agree with that as well. So there's my appeal. Will probably fall on deaf ears, but there we go. Has to be said, I think. Ashley at 941300 says, is there anyone that Panthers could get forward wise after this weekend's display, and who would you take out of the team to bring a player in? Wouldn't take anyone out, because I think we need the players. We do need somebody who can score goals. I think that was evident after this weekend. 104 shots, 2 goals scored, both by defensemen. So not a great display. I would like to see a forward come in. It depends who's available and who's on budget. So we will see. We will see. Chris Phillips, with the Panthers losing 6 out of the last 7 games, what needs to be done to halt the rut? A completely different team with some goal scorers. As I say, I keep repeating myself. Nothing against the work ethic of the team. It just hasn't got the quality, just hasn't got the goal scoring ability, as we saw over the weekend. What can you do? What can you do? Matthew Bostock, do you think Kevin Carr looks more confident and a better netminder since Tim Wallace left, or is he after a new contract for next season? Well, I think all players are being want contracts for next season. He has played very well. He also had 6 D-men in front of him this weekend. And it was noticeably how much tighter the defense was, and it showed in the statistics as well. Just 2 goals conceded in regulation time, 4 goals overall with overtime. Kevin Carr was superb in both games, I thought. Played very, very well. So is he after a new contract for next season? I'd be very surprised if he wasn't. However, I'll save that, Matthew, because there's a question right at the end that will probably answer that more. So I will leave that one for a second and go on to Tony Wright's question. He says, what is missing from the Panthers this season? I hear that the fan base saying effort and commitment, but in my opinion, I don't see that. What am they missing? I believe there's a lot of effort and commitment from the team, and I've said that all season. And I'm surprised. I can see you're on, so I'm surprised. Why do you not see the effort or supposed effort? Why do you think that they're coasting, or do you think that some certain players are not trying? I honestly can't say that. I honestly think that the effort is there. It's just the quality isn't there. And I think what Panthers are missing is top line goal scoring quality. Just not been there. There's just not enough point scorers in that team. As I mentioned earlier, as Sam said, plenty of grinders, plenty of third line forwards, but just not enough scorers. And I think that is mainly what missing. What is missing. Dingo being out hasn't helped. Kevin Domingue, no, it hasn't. But I think he was probably rushed back from injury too quickly, and hence he's out injured again. Hopefully we'll see him again. I do see the effort. I hear others saying that there isn't, and I don't understand why. Right, okay. No, I totally don't agree with anyone saying the effort isn't there. The effort is definitely there. I don't think any Panthers fan can deny that, frankly. It's just the quality isn't there. And the quality hasn't been there all season, really. Jack Walker, he says, thoughts on our most 2 recent signings in Hedberg and Massey? Loving the workhorse ethic from Hedberg, personally. Strong, skillful guy, solid addition to the offence, and like the look of Massey on his debut on Saturday night against Clan. Yeah, Hedberg, great hands, quick, a lot of skill, but too similar to what we've already got from what I've seen so far. He's a he's a third line player. He's not a goal scorer. He scored 1 assist, I think, so far. And yeah, he's incredibly skillful, incredibly fast, but he's not going to score the goals that we need. And interesting that you say, Jack, workhorse ethic, because that is prevalent through the whole team. But he's just not what we need from a point scoring point of view. For Massey, I thought a reasonable debut, two very good games. Great to have 6 D-men again, which I think is another reason why we look so good on defence, and I think probably helped with the confidence of Kevin Carr as well. The fact that he had 6 D-men in front of him, so I think that was a big help, and he's a big guy as well, and he looked like he wasn't afraid to get stuck in either. So that is also a plus. The only thing is when he was bordered by Chris Lawrence and looked like he was he's got a bit of an injury, not one Panthers player on the ice stepped up. It took Kevin Carr going off because of the penalty and Josh Tetlow coming on to actually try and get Chris Lawrence to answer for what he'd done. And that for me is unacceptable. Someone on the ice should have stepped up at that point and had a word, and not one of them did. And that, to me, 1 is unacceptable, and 2 is a worry, because that shouldn't happen. Somebody should have stepped up there, and I'm very, very disappointed that it didn't. That nobody did. Final question. So, if you've got any more questions, do pop them in the chat. If you've got any that maybe aren't related to Panthers that we could discuss, Twitter at John O'Bollardo on the chat, and I will happily take some more questions. So we've been going 42 minutes, and they've been going near an hour recently, so quite happy to take some more. But this final question that I've got of the wrap we've had in today, so thank you to everyone who sent questions through. They are very, very much appreciated. It comes from Tom at TomJ1994_ on Twitter. And he says, if you were in charge of building a team for next season, what would your key quality aspects be for building a team for the Panthers? Great question. I'm going to assume that we will be back to a bench strength of at least 20, so we can have 4 forward lines. So based on that assumption, I will say we need quality forwards, 2 quality scoring lines, forward lines, which we just haven't had this season. With a left wing, a right wing, and a centre, not people mixing up, actual people in the right positions. That would be one of the first things. A decent third line that has the ability to score goals, but has the ability to shut down as well. And then a proper shut down fourth line who can put in valuable minutes on the ice to give the other lines a rest. The most important thing for me, and the first things I would do, would be netminder and defence. As the saying goes, offense wins games, defense wins championships. So defense and netminding for me is the most important positions on the team. So therefore, I would like to see, if we're going with 3 pairs, so 6D, a left and a right D-man on each line, an offensive and stay-at-home defenseman on each line. Quality all the way through that. And a quality netminder, and a good netminder. Kevin Carr, bless him, I like him. I think he's a decent netminder, but I don't think Kevin Carr has the consistency to win us a championship. I think there are better netminders in the Elite League. Beska Rawani, most definitely. Matt Carruth at Cardiff. Stojanovic at Sheffield. Certainly CJ Mott at Coventry, rate him highly, and maybe even Matt Ginn at Manchester as well. But I think there are at least 5 other better netminders than Kevin Carr, and that's not a slight on Kevin Carr. I do think he's a good netminder. I just don't think he's the best netminder, and I don't think he's a netminder who could lead us to a championship. So, you know, so for me, the important things are absolutely rock solid, top draw netminder, and a balanced defense. So that they would what I would be looking for. Now, whether the budget is available to get all that remains to be seen. But that is what I like. That would be the wish list. But we'll have to see if wishes come true. Okay, I'll give you another 30 seconds to get any more questions in for any people who are in on the chat, also on Twitter at John O'Bullard. Just a reminder that Panthers are in Manchester on Friday night. There will be a webcast available for those who can't make it up to Altrincham. I will be commentating on the webcast, so very, very much looking forward to that one on Friday night. And it will give me a chance to listen to 4,000 and Counting with Tom Darnell on the journey up on Friday afternoon. So I will listen to that. Okay, looks like there's nothing else coming through, so I will finish it there. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for getting involved on the chat, and thank you to everyone who sent questions in throughout the week. If you want to send questions for next week, please don't feel you have to wait till Tuesday, as people didn't this week. Anytime you can send through DMs or on replies at John O'Bullard on Twitter. I am happy to take them whenever you send them through, and I will save them for this week or for next week. Sorry. But once again, thanks ever so much for watching. Take care. Have a great week. Enjoy your hockey wherever you're watching it. And I will speak to you again next week. But until then, goodbye.